Good morning, everybody. It's Jo. So this is my first time doing a Facebook Live event. So I am really excited to see you guys this morning. Today we're going to talk about, I even made props. They're not great props, but they're props. Self-love and acceptance. So I'm going to give everyone a few moments to log on, but while everyone's logging on, I want to talk about what we're going to talk about today, which, like I said, is self-love and acceptance. I think in our culture, it's difficult anyways, right? Like loving and accepting ourselves aren't easy things, but especially after we've experienced life or trauma or any kind of really difficult events, they splinter us even more. And I found in my own experience, after I went through trauma, I just hated myself, like 10 times more. Hey Jeff, hey Rhonda, hey Amy, it's great to see you guys. Thanks for logging on this morning. So like I was saying, so after I went through my own experiences, self-love and self-acceptance were so much harder. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experiences today, a little bit about what self-love versus self-acceptance are, and what I have found helpful, what others have found helpful, and some tools for finding that in your own life. So, like I said, I think one of the curses of trauma, especially perpetrated by other people, is that I've yet to find a single survivor who doesn't feel like it's their fault, who doesn't blame themselves. Thanks, Jeff. I've got some here too. Who doesn't feel like it's their fault, right? And I think that's easy to do because at any point in our stories, we can find something where we think, if I hadn't done that, this horrible thing wouldn't have happened to me. Like in my experience, like if I hadn't continued to be friends with this person, if I hadn't gone back to his house, if I hadn't whatever, this wouldn't have happened. And so I hated myself for the longest time for those actions. And I fixated on those things. I may be interrupted by dogs jumping on me, by the way. Or I don't know what your experience is, but for a lot of people, maybe something happened in public. Like if they went to a party or they were drinking or whatever, and they hate themselves for those actions, and they blame themselves and feel all this guilt and shame forever, because how could they do that when really those are things that everyone does all the time? Like everyone goes out in public, everyone goes to parties, everyone drinks, everyone runs alone, everyone is friends with people, everyone is all these things. And so, we fixate and we hate ourselves for these things. I want to start by talking about acceptance and commitment therapy, which is something that has really helped me in my journey with loving and accepting myself. And it's something that actually helped me more physically at first than mentally. So acceptance and commitment therapy, let me first start by saying I am not dogs. I am not an expert on, I'm not a therapist, this is just my experience with it. But it made me realize that the more I hated myself, the angrier I got at myself, the more I blamed myself, like the more negative emotion I directed towards myself, the worse things got. So I experienced this in the form of like physical pain. I have a Chiari malformation, which is like a brain condition, and then I have compressed discs from a neck injury, horseback riding injury. And so for about 2 years, I was going to doctor's offices. I basically like lived there. And I went to the Mayo Clinic for a while, and no one could figure out what was going on. I was living in pain like all the time, and I hated life. Like I hated it. I was so frustrated. I was so done. I had just graduated college. I was ready to like start life and just like get going, and I felt like everything was in the way. Like my body was stopping me. And so on bad days, hey Miranda, it's good to see you. So on bad days, when I would feel all this pain that would stop me from doing anything aside from like staying in bed, I would get so angry. I would get so angry and so upset and mad at the world and mad at myself, and why couldn't I fix this? Why couldn't I figure it out? Or I would like sink in depression and just be so upset, which I think it's okay to be upset, obviously. But the more negative emotion I directed towards myself, literally the worse the pain got. And my therapist recommended to me acceptance and commitment therapy, which is like this little workbook that I probably got through like the first 5 pages of and tried to start implementing. And it really made a radical difference in my life. Because essentially all it is, and again, a therapist can explain this a lot better to you than I can, is accepting where you are in the moment and making peace with it and knowing that it's not going to be forever, but it is what it is right now. And so in those moments when I was experiencing a lot of physical pain, or when I was having, a crazy migraine, oh, thanks, Miranda, I appreciate that. Hey, Brian. So when I was having a crazy migraine or a lot of pain, and instead of fighting against it, if I just was like, you know what, this sucks, it's frustrating, I'm upset, and I wish it wasn't the case, but it is right now. I know it's not going to be forever, and so instead of trying to force it to go away, instead of directing all this negative energy towards myself, I'm just going to say it is what it is right now. And when I could do that, it got better a lot faster. When I could do that, the pain wasn't as intense. And that really was a light bulb for me. Not only did it help me a lot physically, but it kind of turned on a light for me mentally as well. Because as I was trying to recover from all of this trauma and all of this mental crap, I was directing all of this negative energy towards myself. All of this anger and guilt and blame and shame and just these brutal, vicious, awful messages towards myself every single day. Not only hating myself for everything I had done to put myself in that situation, which isn't accurate, but is what I felt. But, just mostly that, but also, why am I not further along? Why am I still upset? Why am I still feeling these things? Just, pushing against myself all the time. And I realized that was making my suffering so much worse. And if I could, accept where I was in the moment, it passed so much faster. I was actively slowing down my healing. Hating myself and hating where I was and wishing I was somewhere else actively was slowing down my healing. And so that was really a moment for me where I started to realize, okay, maybe that is actually stopping how quickly I'm healing. And that kind of brings up my next point, which is, I think, a big part, at least for me, this is just me, let me know if you guys feel the same way or not, but of why I had such a hard time accepting myself after everything happened is that I didn't know who I was anymore. Because trauma really changes us. We aren't the same people anymore. And I know some people, I think most people want to go back. We want to go back to the people we were before everything happened, before we felt so shattered and broken, but we can't do that. But we can move forward. And I don't want to say that like a depressing thing, because I love my life now. I am proud of who I am. I'm proud to where I've gotten to. I really do love my life, but I can never go back to the person I was before. I didn't know who I was. I had no idea whose skin I was living in. After that incredibly abusive relationship and after those assaults, I literally felt like the person I was before was dead. And I was suddenly reborn into this horrible world, and I didn't know whose skin I was living in. And so I couldn't accept myself because I had no idea who I was. And so I kind of tried to take the path that we take when we get to know a friend. And we get to know someone by hanging out with them and having conversations with them and doing stuff with them. And one of the most helpful things for me in self-love and self-acceptance was trying new things, going and just doing stuff. Because the person I was now was not the person I was before. And if I tried to be that person that I was before, it just didn't fit. It wasn't me. And Amy, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. And it took me a long time to figure out who I was. And I'm still in that process. I think probably everyone is in that process throughout their whole life. But I finally got to a place where I was comfortable in my own skin. But like I was saying, trying new things was really helpful because they helped me pick pieces of, oh, okay, that's who I am and that's who I'm not. I found that for me, I walked into an MMA gym one day, which is mixed martial arts for anyone who doesn't know. And instantly I was this is home. I have no idea why a gym in the bad part of town with a bunch of sweaty guys feels like home, because this is not at all my sort of environment, but it felt like home, and that was it. And so I joined the gym and I fought there for 2 years, and it changed my life in a really positive way, and actually I met my husband there, so it was especially awesome. And then I tried yoga, which I had never ever tried before. I had always kind of been raised in a Christian environment where yoga was bad, like spiritually weird or whatever, but I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot. And I found a lot of peace through it. And so I started, I don't know if this sounds weird, but like I started hanging out with myself. Like I started doing things with me. And I got to know myself. And I had conversations with myself, not by talking to myself like a weirdo, though I probably did a good deal of that as well, but by journaling. I would do so much journaling, especially in the first couple years. I literally have a bookcase of journals upstairs. And I think I was writing and writing and writing, not only to just get like negative stuff out of my head and put stuff on paper, but to get to know myself, because I didn't know who I was. And like I said, I think it's like getting to know a friend. You get to know a friend by spending time with them. And that's how you figure out, who they are and what they like and what they don't like. And I'm sure a lot of other people have used this example, but one thing that has helped, again, with self-love and self-acceptance is treating myself, hey Sheila, it's good to see you, treating myself like I would treat a friend. And I think a really small example of that, I'll talk about it mentally in just a second, but treating myself like I would treat a friend, even like with physical actions. Because I think love is an action before it's a feeling, especially like if we hate ourselves, if we treat ourselves with love, then eventually the feeling will follow after that. So a really small and silly example of this is I wake up oftentimes with headaches and migraines, and I really have a hard time like getting started in the morning, like getting going. But I have to work, I have to do stuff. And so I'll set out clothes the night before. Like I'll fold clothes and make them look cute or whatever and put them out. And then I'll like put oatmeal in a bowl and put it in the microwave and put like a coffee cup, next to the microwave. And so everything is set out and super easy for me to get to and do. And when I get up in the morning, I'm like, oh, how nice of this person to take care of me. And I know that sounds super lame, but I get up and I feel taken care of. I feel like someone was thinking of me. And that person was me. And so I feel grateful to myself. And so that has helped foster feelings of like self-gratitude. And like maybe I don't suck so much. And so I do things to actually take care of myself, to like actual actions to take care of myself like I would do for anyone I love. And that's helped me accept myself and help me love myself. And like I was talking about, I think love is an action first. Maybe not for everything and not for everyone. I think oftentimes we feel love towards people first. We feel kindness, we feel all these things. Hey, Samantha. But oftentimes love is an action. If you look up definitions of love, oftentimes they're action-based definitions. Like love is kind actions. Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it. So it's being kind to someone. It's being patient with someone. It's being empathetic and a number of different things. And so if we do not like ourselves, if we just can't find things in ourselves that we like, but we take actions, like intentionally take actions towards ourselves that are loving, regardless of what we feel, how we start to feel does change. Like if I do little things like that to take care of myself, how I start to feel about myself does change. If I start to spend time with myself, thanks Samantha, you're awesome. Start to, spend time with myself and explore new things and do things and journal and write, and all these things. And just spend time with myself in a positive way, things start to change. And I think another thing that when I was at the retreat that I talked about in my video a couple last week, something that someone brought up there that has really stuck with me, hey Natasha, was about self-talk. So everyone talks about positive self-talk. Like if you look up self-love on Google or whatever, you'll find tips for, you need to talk to yourself. Thanks, Trudy. You'll find tips for positive self-talk and all this stuff. And I think that there is absolutely a place for that. And I'm coming into a place in my life, hey Natasha, where I think the positive self-talk and like affirmations and things like that are really a good thing. I'm actually going to even show you guys. I feel really lame about this, but I wrote down a whole page of affirmations the other day because I think that they have a place. But when we're in that place where we like don't love ourselves, don't accept ourselves, and there is nothing in ourselves that we really love or appreciate. And when people are like, hey, you're really awesome, or God, you're beautiful, or whatever it is, and our reaction internally is like, wow, you're lying, or that's just not true, or you may think that, but I know that's not accurate. And like those positive things are almost more repulsive than anything. I think trying to force positive self-talk almost has a negative effect sometimes. And so what this girl at the retreat said, and if you know who you are, thank you so much if you happen to be watching this, but she brought up positive self-talk and how she felt like she was lying to herself when she was like, I'm beautiful, I'm kind, I'm intelligent, I'm great, I'm a good mother, I'm a good friend, like all this stuff. She was like, I'm just lying to myself. And so she said instead of that, what she tried to do for a year was when all of these horribly negative things would come into her head, which was like all the time, instead, she would just try to stop and think of nothing. Instead of being like, no, actually, I'm really smart. When she's like, God, I'm so stupid, she would just try to think of nothing and like distract herself. And so eventually those voices kind of quieted down. And the quieter they got, the more space there was for positive things to enter eventually. And eventually they did. And eventually she got to a place where she could actually believe those positive things about her, but just kind of forcing affirmative positive self-talk right up front didn't work for her. And so I think that, you know, people say like stand in the mirror and tell yourself 10 things you love about yourself, or things like that. If that works for you, I think that's awesome. I think that there's absolutely psychology to that. I think it could work. But if that's not your thing, don't do that. If that's not your thing, try to quiet those voices. And I think a good thing to do is start by trying to distract yourself. So when you have all those voices that start whispering like, I suck, I'm horrible, I'm a terrible friend, I'm, you know, awful at my job, everything is my fault, or I fill in the blank with like all of the monsters in your head, see if you can like switch the channel and go do something else, or like call someone and start having a conversation about something completely different, or express what you're thinking if that's helpful to you, or just do something to like cut it off to distract yourself. Because I found that helpful to kind of stop those voices. Now, I went into my next prop that I made for you guys. Let's see here. Chris. Oh, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So self-acceptance, a quote by Wayne Dyer. I think one thing that I thought for a long time about self-acceptance is that, like, if you accept something, you're not going to change it. And we talk a lot about self-improvement, right? Like, we have to be better. And self-acceptance is not giving up. Self-acceptance is not being like, well, this is who I am and you all can deal with it. He said, self-acceptance, accepting yourself isn't about throwing in the towel. No. Accepting yourself is about having your own back and never abandoning yourself no matter what. There we go. And I love that because I think that's so true. Because isn't that what we do with, like, friends or kids or anyone we love? Like, it's not about saying, you know, you never have to do anything differently. We want the best for people. We want them to grow and change and become the most, you know, the best humans they can be, but we're not always telling them, you suck, you have to be better. If we're doing that, it's kind of abusive, you know? So accepting yourself isn't about saying, I'm not going to improve, I'm not going to grow. Accepting yourself is saying, I have my back. Where I am right now is okay. I'm going to continue to get better, but I'm going to do my best to love myself today. And self-love, I just looked up a couple definitions last night because I like looking up definitions. And it says it's just a regard for one's own well-being and happiness. And I like that because there are a lot of sappy definitions of self-love out there that sound really unattainable. It's just a regard for one's own well-being, which kind of goes back to what I was saying before about, you know, just taking care of yourself and taking actions towards that. And then the last thing I had, or one of the last things I had, was Brene Brown. I don't know if you guys know who she is. I have quoted her a couple times, but she is a shame and vulnerability researcher, which doesn't that sound fun? But her work is fabulous and hilarious sometimes and heartbreaking and wonderful, and she is an amazing human being. If you don't know who she is, I would say the moment this video is over, please go look up her on, you know, Facebook or YouTube or whatever, because her voice has really changed my life in a number of ways. But she said, let go of who you think you're supposed to be and be who you are, which I think really ties in with self-love and self-acceptance. And an example of this in my own life has really been this channel, just to kind of finish up this video. Because back in October when I started this, for the longest time, I was semi-terrified that people would like find out my story, or people I didn't want to know my story would find out my story, because I didn't accept it, I didn't like it, it's uncomfortable, like it's not a, you know, it's not easy to talk about things like sexual assault and abuse and abusive relationships and domestic violence and all of that. And it was like a secret, like I wanted to hide it. Like I could talk to some people about it. It wasn't like the worst thing ever. But in October, I decided to just like embrace that that was a part of my story, that I love life anyways, and I am still piecing myself together and still figuring things out and still on this journey. But I was not going to, in my case, which is literally only for me, this is just something that's been healing for me. I'm not saying like everyone should be public about anything by any means, but this has just been a healing piece for me, that I was going to start talking about things. Because for me, I've been so quiet for the first half of my life. Like my voice had been taken from me, and I never rocked the boat, and I never challenged people, and I was just like a constant people pleaser. And I had so much to say, and so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to say it. I am just going to, all the things that I've been writing in my journal, all the rants I've had in my head, all the things I've wanted to speak to people about, I'm just going to do it, and I don't care who knows. I don't care who hears me. And so that's when I started this page and channel and just started talking. And the more I did that, the more comfortable with myself I became. And I've had pushback for it, absolutely. And I've had, you know, trolls saying stupid things, but they're just trolls, so who cares? I've had people in real life who have struggled with it too, which I understand. But the more that I have embraced who I am, and that this is a healing thing for me, and this really helps, the more comfortable with myself I have become. So that's just an example of sort of letting go of who I thought I was supposed to be quiet, supposed to, you know, not rock the boat, supposed to whatever, and just being like, you know what, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do. So if you have any thoughts on self-love and self-acceptance, I would seriously love to hear them. I am by no means an expert on this. It's something that I am still journeying in, but I think the biggest thing for me was just really realizing that it's, I think, the safest place to start growing from. That lashing myself for being where I was, that hating where I was in my journey, that wishing I was somewhere else, that all of that stuff, I thought that that was helping me grow. I thought that that was propelling me along, that was making me go faster, and realizing that was just really making me stuck. And so accepting myself was not tying me down. Accepting myself is really propelling me to go so much further, and that I continue to see that evidence in my own life in every area I've been able to implement it in, and there are still areas where I need to implement it in. Oh, thank you so much, Rhonda. I really appreciate that. You're awesome. Thank you so much. So I really appreciate you guys all tuning in today. This is the first time I've done this, and so I was kind of nervous about it, but it's been really fun having you guys here. So thank you so much. And I look forward to doing this again sometime soon. I talked to some of the survivors from the retreat that are here in the local area, and I'm really excited to say that a number of them have agreed to do this with me in a month or two. So we're going to have a Facebook Live event where they're all going to sit down with me here on camera and talk about their experiences together, and so we'll have a number of people here together, which will be fabulous. We haven't done any survivor interviews in a while, and I've missed that. I'm guessing some of you have as well. So we'll have that back here shortly. So you guys have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. Thank you for spending some of your time with me. I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye, guys.